now have Jeff Allen with us, and I might just mention his book is out just today. The publishing date is today, so you'll have a chance to look for it in your local bookstore, but if you can't find it there, we certainly have a link so you can get it in hardback and Kindle. And I was hoping this might be the first interview, but just a few hours ago I heard the interview he did with Jeff Shreve on the book, and so you and the American Family Radio maybe have heard him, but we're going to get into some other aspects of that as well. Jeff Allen's probably well known to you if you like comedy, because you've probably seen him on Dry Bar Comedy, Amazon Prime, Huckabee, Comedy Central. I'm going to go through the long list there as well. Individual that has also performed for troops, and an individual that surpassed 300 million views for his videos on Facebook, YouTube, and other channels. Might also be familiar with his sitcom pilot, Castle Rock Television, Apostles of Comedy. And this new book just out, Are We There Yet? My Journey from Messed Up to Meaningful Life. Jeff, welcome to Point of View.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Can't do it without you guys, so thank you.
Well, I think we've had you on before, so I might even welcome you back. But again, this is the first time now I've read your story, and I'll be real honest, because I'm one of those guys that reads every page. By the time I got to page 80, I'm going, oh my gosh, I hope it gets better, because my goodness, I was told my wife, by page 80, I was, do we really want to do this? And then we get to the born again part. So this is a book where I think people can not only appreciate your wonderful testimony, and it is quite a testimony, but also learn some vicarious lessons about watching your language, anger, addiction, and a number of other things. But there's a line early on where you were actually going in doing stand-up comedy, and somebody fired you and you said, look, I didn't come here to get paid. You don't pay me very much anyway. I came here to drink. So you found that in a sense, by doing comedy in a bar, you could get all the drinks you want, and it almost didn't matter what they paid you. So fill in the gaps, right, because it shows you from what you've come, and it is quite a story indeed.
Yeah, I think Andy Andrews, who wrote the foreword, really hit it when he said you'll meet two couples. You'll meet who we were in the first half of the book, and in the second half you get to meet what Christ created in us in the second half of the book. I always used to make the joke, if you like to sleep, get a job in a mattress factory, and if you like to drink, get a job in a bar. So, I didn't really think I'd make a career of comedy. I just thought, it's kind of a cool place to hang out, and I was an alcoholic, so why not just do it in a bar? But I got married after 7 or 8 years of doing stand-up, and I told my wife, I said, I got to make some money. I mean, I got married. I doubled my income the first year. So years later, when my son comes to me and he was just distraught because he lost his job, and I said, I'm glad you're distraught. That means you'll do something to get employed. But two, the good news is our DNA is wired for panic. We do well when we're under stress. So I said, you'll do fine. And he got a job like 4 or 5 days later. But I wrote the book initially for my kids. They were really little when we went through this, the early part of the book. I was 30 years old when I got sober. I'm 67 now. So
just a youngster.
And I wrote it for the kids, and I wrote it for the grandkids, but I also wrote it because I look around the airports and I see young men. They just remind me of me when I was that age. Just, is this all there is? They just kind of shuffle through, and the apathy it's almost toxic to me to see. It's like you want to walk over and shake them, man. There's more to life. There really is. There is. But you need to know the source of life. You need to know the author of life in order to connect the dots.
Well, let's see if I can, while you mentioned airport, that's, I think, a great one, because you open with an airport, and that's, of course, where you ask your wife to marry you. And then later on, you're back at a baggage claim again, where you're really questioning whether or not you're going to get divorced. And so, in some respects, some of the most pivotal events in your life took place at baggage claim. Have you noticed that?
I did. I said to, I started the book with the proposal at the Cleveland airport,
Yeah.
the baggage claim, because I wanted the reader to fall in love with my romantic side first.
So romantic, yes.
And, yes, it was. And it's so funny. She cries now when we watch a movie and some guy does it right. Just the one knee, ring, plan, everything. She's crying. I'm going, look, I'll ask you again. He goes, no, it's too late. My story's baggage claim. I said, well, it's unique. There's not a lot of people, that get proposed to after a red eye coming from L.A.
Just a wonderful story. There's a lot of humor even in the sad parts, but you did mention alcohol, and one of the things we do talk about here is addictions and things like that, and that really is a significant part of your book. So the first time you ever took a drink, I guess you were 13, had a 7 and 7, a 7-Up with Seven Crown whiskey. But that started something, and it seems to me that there is a lesson right away that we should warn people about, because if you have an addictive personality, that first drink, that first hit of cocaine, whatever it might be, could send you down a path you never anticipated.
Absolutely. And I watched my boys because I wanted to see if they had it,
Yes.
and they don't. I was so grateful to God for that. I thought, because it is. And I had told the boys when they were teenagers, I said, you can drink. I'm not going to, I can't follow you around the rest of your life. But know this, it's in our family. And you may take a drink and it may click and you may all be off on a path that you can't get off of. So just know that, And they were adults when they started. At least they didn't drink like I did at 13.
Yes.
And it probably helped that we didn't condone it and we didn't have it in the house. Tammy has a glass of wine every now and then, but it wasn't like they saw me drinking every day like I did. I saw my mom and dad drinking every day, and I just thought it was a part of life, and the fact that they didn't mind, which boggles my mind, thinking of, after raising two boys at 13, 14, to think that my parents didn't care if I had a drink. And I was long gone before my mother asked. She said, we had no clue. And I did. I hid it from them as long as I could, until I called my dad to come and get me. I couldn't.
Just unbelievable.
Couldn't stop. Yeah.
And again, you're talking about at one point you were sleeping on floors, stealing pop bottles for refunds so you could buy boxes of macaroni and cheese, and living the life. That was certainly the case.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a glamorous life.
Share about how you finally did get sober, because that is, again, one of the tremendous success stories here. And, of course, we'll come back and talk more about your conversion. But that, I think, was a very pivotal event in your life as well, wasn't it?
It was. My father asked me, I was about 2 years sober. He said, what was the catalyst? My dad knew enough. Drinkers don't quit drinking unless something profoundly bad happens. You hit some bottom. And I spanked my 6-month-old son in the crib, and Tammy woke up and came in and took him and sat on the end of the bed and fed him. And she says, what kind of man does this? And I was drunk and coked up, and through that haze, I realized what I had just done, and it frightened me to the point where I told her, take me to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you don't take me, I probably won't go, and if I don't go, I don't think we're going to make it. I knew I had to quit, and that was it. That was the catalyst, and to this day, I think that poor boy of mine took that for, to get me the help I needed, I
want to talk a little bit about also rage and anger. I've got a chapter there which says swipe right for rage and the issue of anger. But also I do want to get into, I think I've heard you say before that I was too raunchy to be clean and too clean to be raunchy. And, and some of that had to do with managing the tongue and your story of third grader, I guess it was. And so we want to talk about some of those. There are just a lot of stories that are really powerful, but also ones where we can learn some vicarious lessons from you as well. The book is entitled, Are We There Yet? booklet, My Journey from a Messed Up to Meaningful Life. We wanted to give you an opportunity to actually read about it. Guess we need to get Jeff saved here, and the way to maybe talk about that for a minute is to mention, as I was talking about, some of the people endorsed the book. One of them that probably stuck out was Tommy Nelson. Now, those of you who listen to Point of View know that we sometimes have Tommy Nelson in studio. I've spoken at Tommy Nelson's church. He's the senior pastor at Denton Bible Church. And so how is that tied into the story of Jeff Allen? Well, it turns out that you had a friend by the name of Phil who wanted you to actually begin to grow in your faith, and in some respects went on to talk about this particular church he attended in Denton, Texas, pastored by Tommy Nelson, and how he taught the Bible. Then Phil said, would you be interested in studying the Bible? Denton Bible Church has a tape ministry that I'd be willing to sign you up for. And you said, well, would it cost me anything? No. Well, then knock yourself out. I don't care. So then all of a sudden, all these cassettes showed up. Your wife was not happy because they were all over the place, apparently. But that influence of Tommy Nelson was a very significant part in your Christian growth, wasn't it?
Huge. And, I collected the tapes for about a year and a half, and Phil never once said to me, I sent you tapes. Have you listened to them? Sent you a Bible. He sent me a Bible. I threw that in a junk drawer, But he had a life that was well lived, Tommy always said that every man at some point needs to get downwind from himself. And I got downwind from Phil, and it was a good life. Yeah, he was a good husband. He was a good father, and successful, and it was good to be around. So he said he would pray for my marriage. I couldn't understand why. And
Yes.
But eventually, Tammy grabbed the kids, and she was going to go to Ohio for the summer. And I really didn't think she was going to come back. And before she left, she gathered up all the tapes. She said, either listen to these things or I'm throwing them out. You can imagine, a year and a half. So that's, 52 and 26, 78. And there was 2 tapes in each envelope. So that's 100 and some tapes.
In the middle of the floor, from what I understand.
Right. Well, I think God knew that I needed a library. He said, he goes, if he listens to one, it's not going to be enough. But anyway, she left, and I opened one up, and my first sermon I ever really listened to from Tommy was on the book of Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
And
you're one of the few people I know that's become a Christian through the book of Ecclesiastes, which I think is pretty powerful.
I know. It was interesting when I first started sharing this in churches. Christians would come to me and go, I can't believe God used the book of Ecclesiastes. And I go, I don't understand that. And they go, well, it's a pretty cynical book. I go, well, you didn't know me like he knew me. I heard meaningless. It was like, yes, it was that was the conclusions I had come to after 7 or 8 years of looking,
yes,
searching. I realized that nothing mattered. I was a full-blown nihilist, and really hard to live with because, Tammy would try to shake me into caring about something. I always tell churches, if your marriage today is full of acrimony, wait till you get to apathy. There's nothing more painful in the human experience than not caring. And
wow.
I just, she would just go, we're losing everything, and you don't care. I go, I don't. It's, she go, who says that? I go, somebody does. I said, I want to care. I do. I look around, I feel the burden of everything, but it's like, what difference does it make if we have a big house, small house, big car, small car? I don't. And ultimately, it was the gerbil, with the sticks, that God used of all things. The metaphor that I needed was we're just gathering sticks down here, and if that's it, I'm out.
Wow. Powerful.
But I think John Paul, I think it was Sartre that said that in order for something finite to have meaning, it has to be connected to something transcendent and fixed. Now, he wouldn't say God; he was an atheist, but that's what his conclusions were. I mean, you can't attach yourself to anything of this earth because it's all moving in flux. So if your meaning comes from anything earthly, it's going to change and constantly be changing. So attach yourself to God and ultimately to Jesus, and it never changes. It hasn't changed. And now my life is basically, is it true or is it a lie? Because I understand that the author of lies, is still out there, roaming the earth, and, it was an eye-opening and immediate transformation for me when I heard meaningless, and I just couldn't get enough. And it's funny, I spent all my time in the Old Testament, and when I got to Genesis 1:1, and I fell on my face because I knew there was a God, I'm screaming at Phil. I call him, and there's a God. Phil, there's a God. He goes, yeah, I've been trying to tell you for like a year and a half. I go, oh, my Lord. He goes, what's the problem? I said, blasphemy, cursing him, denying him. My gosh.
Yes.
Why would he want me? And Phil says, have you gotten to the cross? I go, the cross. He goes, oh, I can't ruin the ending for you, man. Yeah, study those and the parables. My gosh, the prodigal son. How do you hear that as a broken human being and not just weep?
Let me quote one Tommy Nelson one when you talk about the cross, because Tommy Nelson one time in one of the tapes preached in a prison at one point and told these really hardcore inmates, I wouldn't walk across the stage to tell you about my religion of Christianity, but I would crawl on my knees to hell and back through broken glass to tell you about the love of the Savior who went to the cross for you. He loves you just as you are. You don't have to change first. Just come as you are to the cross. Jesus loves you just as you are. Powerful message, and you included that in your book.
I did. Yeah, it was. It really says it all. It really says it all. That Jesus stands just waiting, and life changing overnight. Just getting on my knees and going, I'm yours. And the example I use. Telling Jesus, I'm yours is like, going to a Lamborghini dealership with a '76 Yugo and saying, "Hey, I'm willing to trade you even up."
That's such a great line. Let me, for just a minute, since you talked about the change spiritually, but here's another lesson, and that is the change takes time. And those of us that teach in a seminary, we use big words like sanctification, but anger is a good illustration of that. I mentioned that just a minute ago. When you became a Christian, it's not like anger went away. It was a process, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, but it was different in the sense that it wasn't the same. Where it encompassed me. I don't know how to explain that, but something would click, and I was gone. Tammy used to say, you'd go from 0 to 100, and the difference was that I knew it was wrong. I didn't want to be this way. And I would get on my knees immediately, and I'd leave the room, and then eventually calm down, walk out, and tell my family, I'm extremely sorry for that. You don't deserve that, and it's just again, you're rewiring your brain as you grow in your faith, and now I get angry on the golf course. I forget that I have a peace that surpasses all understanding. And but it's not. Tammy would tell you it's not the same. It's for whatever It's. But everything. Again, I try to explain that. Jesus said, "I'll send you a new counselor in the form of the Holy Spirit," and that wars with your nature. I mean, your nature doesn't die off. Paul talks about that. So it's a constant dying of self, and you have to discern what parts of your life you want to keep and the other parts you just don't like, and you hope they die on the vine.
Wow. One of the things you have the quote in there, God invented time, man invented the watch. And you said, my life may not have changed as quickly as I would have wanted. But one thing I learned is this: we all want struggles to be over, but the mature person realizes that while we're in the midst of struggle, that you can encounter the divine. So it is a book just full of great insights. But I thought I'd also just talk about the comedy, because you know as well as I do, Jeff, that there are usually two categories, the kind of the raunchy comedians and the clean. You always tried to be clean, but there were certain words that would pop out there, and that is another aspect, I think, of your Christian growth and something that really came to a fore when you realized how it was affecting your children.
Yeah, I got called in third or fourth grade. My son cussed at his teacher, and when she told us, kind of, sort of, she couldn't even repeat what he said, but I got the gist of it. And I said, I'd love to be able to look you in the eye and tell you I have no idea where that child heard that kind of language. But anyway, as we were driving home that day, Tammy said to me, she goes, this is not attractive. You know, we need to make some. And I decided to lead by example and take it out of my my life. And then they had no excuse. I mean, if I didn't talk that way, then they didn't have the right to talk that way. Anyway, and then I wondered if it would translate into my comedy, and I started taking it out of my comedy. And man, what a difference as a storyteller, you know,
Yes.
to actually get a thesaurus out and begin to paint the pictures with words rather than taking the shortcuts. It made a huge difference. And then when I started doing comedy in the churches, you know, friends of mine that were, you know, secular would say to me, how is that working out? I know it's amazing. I said, you believe it or not, church people are actually used to listening to someone talk for 45 minutes without interrupting them and throwing beer bottles at them, you know. So it was a good fit when I got into to doing comedy in the churches. And we're back out for the book tour. You know.
And again, you got, you know, stories about working with the Gaithers and a variety of others, and just some great testimony there. I got to set you up for a joke, though, because when you did swear, you would drop a quarter in a jar, didn't you?
I did, and that's how I quarter for every foul word, and that's how I put them through college.
I had to set you up for that joke. It's just too good a joke not to set you.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's, if we can, for just a few minutes, talk about kind of where your life is going. And one of the reasons we have on our website, pointofview.net, a link to jeffallencomedy.com, and people can follow the link as they can learn more about you. But it does seem to me that, that God is not through with you yet. And in some respects, with this book coming out, you will have a great opportunity in church venues and other venues to share your testimony. But then also, you just have a quick wit, and I think people would enjoy hearing some of your humor.
Yeah, it's interesting when Salem published a book, and when they put it out that we were taking it out on tour, the pastors said we'd love to have him, but if all he's going to do is comedy, we don't want it. We want to, you know, a call to action of some sort, you know, and I understand that. You know, when I started doing testimonies in churches, you know, friends of mine that were even Christian go, well, why do you do that? I said, well, they're spending money that were given to them in tithes and offerings. And if you know, again, comedy's good. I mean, obviously, I would be brought in sometimes for banquets of volunteers that were already, you know, they just wanted comedy, you know, but to offer a story of hope and restoration and redemption, and also now we're looking to do. I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase tikkun olam. We took this out of the book. I don't know why, because I'm going to take it around the country. It's in the Jewish faith. God knows the world is broken, that this world is broken, and he's charged the Jewish people with repairing the broken world. And your tikkun olam is, what are you doing to repair the broken world? And I wanted to put that in because I wanted, it's interesting, you know, if you put it on a shirt, people look at it and go, gosh, what is that? And it gives you an opportunity to share what God has done for you and what you're doing on behalf of to honor God by taking something, whatever your calling is in life, you know, to repair this world. And that's kind of what the message will be ultimately. But the first half of the show will just be really 45, 50 minutes of just hard comedy. I mean, I want people laughing because it releases endorphins, and there's so many healing benefits to the laughter. And then the second half, we'll cover the book, and hopefully, we'll get some laughter out of that as well. I mean, again, everything in that book is self-inflicted. It's not by no means am I a victim.
Sure.
I just had some faulty wiring and some really bad information as I entered adulthood. And I understand millennials. This adulting thing is hard. It really is. It really is hard.
I might just mention, too, near the end of the book, you do ask questions like, what defines you? What do you value? What are your expectations? Which voices do you listen to? Where is your hope? So, first of all, this is when you're speaking, a way to bring it to a close and a call to action. But also, it's the kind of book you might hand to an unsaved friend who, as they're going through the first part, saying, yeah, I can relate to that, I can relate to that. And then they get to Tommy Nelson, the book of Ecclesiastes, and go, this is really crazy, but let me stay with this. And you, at the end, really get people thinking about where they're going in their world. And so, in some respects, I think it's just a great tool for you, but it's also a great tool for many of our listeners take advantage of as well. So we do have a link. Are We There Yet is the book. And as you mentioned, Salem Books, you can probably find it in your local bookstore. If not, we have all the information you need right there on our website at pointofview.net. Also have a link to jeffallencomedy.com, and there's a place where you can see the tour, find out a little bit more about the media, and maybe you'd like to have him come and speak for you as well and do comedy or whatever it might be. I think there's just some great opportunities. So, Jeff Allen, it's been great to have you on the program, and congratulations on the book out today, and I would encourage people to look for it in the local bookstore if they can.
Thank you, Kerby. I really appreciate what you just said. That's meaningful. Thank you.
Well, I hope you appreciated the conversation we had here today. We wanted to first of all, give you a wonderful testimony here from Jeff Allen, and then, of course, some conversation about morals, ethics, and maybe even a few things that would help you in witnessing to your non-Christian friends. So if you'd like to know more about some of the things we're talking about today, they are available on our website at pointofview.net. You have my Viewpoints commentary. We have a take action item, a video that I've encouraged you to watch. Thanks for joining us. And I hope you, again, I've appreciated all that we've talked about today. If you like this episode, follow us, tell a friend, and rate us so that we can continue bringing you the best highlights from Point of View. That's all we have for today. We look forward to seeing you next time right here on Point of View Highlights.